Well, President Mahama has recommended that the National Petroleum Authority, which is the NPA, should consider what he described as a mitigation levy on petroleum products. I've been joined in the studio now by an energy and policy analyst, John Peter Mewu. He joins us. John, thank you very much for your time and welcome to TV3. So we've had recommendations by the President for the NPA to possibly look at a mitigation levy. What do you make of it?
Well, first of all, I want to thank the President for coming out with that novel idea. The President has a good intention for the citizens of this country, and I think his intention will be to see the guys live up to, expectation that he thinks. Unfortunately, I would differ from the introduction of the levy as the President estimated earlier on. Already, the citizens of this country are burdened. Not quite too long, we have seen some introduction of some tax elements into the petroleum prices at the export price. The levy eventually determining the prices or whatever you may call it is a tax. It's going to be an imposition of burden on the citizens that are already burdened. Why this? I mean, we had so much, suffering from this government, and I think that imposing a levy will not be the right way to go about this procedure.
Well, essentially, if I understand the President, this is obviously to cushion Ghanaians in future when crude oil prices go up.
What is the guarantee of that cushion? We have seen instances in this government when politicians at various levels of the government call for spending funds that are meant for future generations. We have seen this government officials,
the heritage fund,
asking for heritage funds to be used now because we are facing present developmental needs. What is the guarantee? What level of transparency is the President going to introduce to make sure that if we have this levy, eventually, which will be transformed into a fund somewhere, what is the guarantee that the same government will not come and say, oh, let us use it for the purpose of development? Development is fine. Every country will want to see some level of development. But you see, the attitude where we think as a central government, by what is important for us is the growth of the country in terms of GDP. My grandmother lives in the village. She's not thinking about the growth of your GDP, 14-15% of GDP. He doesn't see what you're talking about. The gain he wants is some money in his pocket and immediate returns that you achieve. That person wants to, go to the ex-pump, buy crude oil, or buy, petroleum products, and be able to go on fishing at a very cheaper price. And that is what is more relevant.
Let's take a look at this whole mitigation levy, and if indeed it comes into practicality, how different is it going to be from the automatic adjustment formula?
You see, the mitigation levy eventually is just going to be, say, a percentage in terms of the pricing put into the pricing or the pricing formula. And that eventually will be collected. So if it is 1 cedi per liter, let me assume, at any point that you buy this liter, that 1 cedi will be taken out as a levy. What it means is that if there's increases in price of the crude oil or other related factors that constitute the pricing, we will not necessarily come back and ask citizens to pay because they had already paid. So they go back and use that money, to stabilize the system. I see it as extortion and making the citizens, already burdened. The best approach, and a lot of suggestions have been made, is probably to begin to look at the practices in most countries where a benchmark price is examined. For instance, we say prices at $60 per barrel of crude oil. So at any particular point in time that we have prices falling below $60 per barrel, the excess of that money is taken.
But we've always had a hedging policy in place.
Well, the hedging policy is actually for planning. The hedging is not an issue of gain or losses. It's just for planning. So you hedge and you decide to plan along that particular. The hedging allows you to operate in a uniform pattern. That is hedging. This is quite different from this. So looking at the benchmark pricing procedure, that is not going to burden the citizens so much. Not at all even, because citizens are not going to pay extra costs. With the levy that intends to introduce, going to send prices up. It's a tax. It's a tax. So prices again will go up. And so I think that is unnecessary. And then the President thinking that 10% is a dramatic reduction in price. The issue is not dramatic.
You disagree with that?
I totally disagree.
In your own estimation, would you say the implementation of the automatic adjustment formula has failed?
It has not failed. It has not failed. It seems to have failed probably because of government capture of the regulator. The NPA as a regulator is not allowed to operate. Government largely has captured this regulator such that it has little room to operate. If the automatic price adjustment formula is allowed to work, then of course there's no need for introduction of this levy. Citizens will enjoy as when prices come down, and they'll cough up the differences when prices go up. We all understand that procedure. But the difficulty we have with the government is that at point in time that we need prices falling, and which citizens might enjoy, government comes and says, I want to use that to pay for, under recovery. The question is, who is responsible for the under recovery? Most of the losses we incur as part of the under recovery during the period was as a result of exchange rate differential. The exchange rate differential in terms of the strength of the cedi to the dollar. And who is the cause of that? That results from management of the economy. You blame that
on poor management.
If government mismanage the economy, why did it go back to my poor mother in the village and say, I'm sorry, I want to build more bridges for you, so please pay something little, and next time I'm not going to do that.
There appears to be a bit of inconsistency in the figures being quoted. We've had the NPA come out to say, the debt which has been paid to the BDC so far is about 170 million cedis, while the president is also quoting another figure. What's
well, I have little to say. That shows the inconsistency of this government, and they are not, clear to tell Ghanaians exactly what it is. I have little idea about how much is being owned, but what is important for us is that who is the cause and who really, contributes to that. I agree with government when government says that over the period of increases in prices, Ghanaians are not able to pay the realistic prices because of element of subsidy. We've gone beyond that. Okay, and it's also true, which I agree with government, that it is not only the increases in prices of crude oil that reflect the prices at which we buy it at the benefit. There are a lot of other factors. We have both the internal factors and then the external factors. Fortunately for us as a country, the external factors that include crude oil prices, demand and supply dynamics, the exchange rate differentials. These things hadn't changed so much. What changes there, basically, to the advantage of the consumers, is the fall in price. When we come to internally, which is the refined product itself, we have the equalization margin, the retail margin, the gross and then the net margin, all embedded in the prices. These ones have remained fairly stable over the period. What has changes within that pricing element is the current introduction of tax element in the 2015 budget by government. So considering the fact that at the lower end where we have the refined products, nothing has changed, and that at the extreme end where we have the crude oil, prices has fallen, it just reflects that people must enjoy the benefits.
So very finally, John, what must we begin to do differently?
What we need to do immediately as a country is that government needs to give a further reduction, at least not less than 25%, of what we are enjoying now. I agree with the president when he thinks that, well, we need to save that money for development. But the question is that we are ruled and guided by regulations and laws. And if the law says this, we shouldn't come up with accord measures to address how this government or the country should be ruled. The automatic price adjustment formula, it's more like a law. It's a regulation that guides the pricing formula. Why do we want to differ from that? So I think we need to go back to that and determine exactly what we need to pay for the price.
All right, thank you very much.